Football is a lot about feelings. Sport is a lot about feelings. You take decisions based on feelings. When you're on the pitch, you should be emotionally engaged. And I've been in that place myself where you feel like the world is on your shoulders, struggling to keep up with the demands. You are competing for a place in the starting lineup, but you only have 11 starters. It can easily lead to negativity. It can easily lead to you not dealing with those emotions in a healthy way, because they want to play. They want to play, and they think in their own mind that they are better than the guy who is playing that moment. Individual aspirations, it's still what gets you to the top. I was really selfish, until I was 24, 25 and actually found out what life is about. That was a big one. Not everyone is going to see the world through your lens.
Okay. Here we are again for another episode of the FLT podcast. We've been going for a few months now, and we've had representatives on of Finnish leadership from business, from the arts, from education, from international relations. And one perspective that I thought was missing in all of that was a really good professional sports perspective. And when I think about influential people in Finnish professional sports, there's nobody more influential or inspirational than our guest today, Tim Sparv. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Those are very big words. Thank you very much.
I mean them. I mean, I think but there's very few sportsmen in Finland that have had as historic an impact on their team's game as you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem. As always, we prepared a little bit of an introduction. Kelly, would you do the honors?
Indeed. Welcome, Tim. I'm going to read a little introduction to our listeners. So, Tim, you are an assistant coach at both Sparta Prague and the Finnish national team, living these days in Prague with your partner and daughter. Your coaching roles follow a successful football career that saw you win titles in Denmark and Finland and captain national sides to major tournaments at under 21 and senior level. Both were the first time Finland had qualified for a major tournament. You grew up in, is it Orave, Ostrobothnia, but moved at the age of 16 to join Southampton, at the time a Premier League club, and played youth football in the same group as international stars such as Gareth Bale, Theo Walcott, and Adam Lallana, among others. Successful stints in Sweden, Holland, and Germany followed before a career-defining move to the emergent Midtjylland in Denmark. Winning 3 titles in a cup there, you were part of Matthew Benham's revolutionary use of analytics that sent Midtjylland into Europe, where you scored against former club Southampton, knocking them out of the Europa League. For Finland, you played 84 times under 5 different managers, experiencing both Finland's worst and best runs in international football. Off the pitch, you have used your platform to advocate for the development of the sport in Finland and has spoken out on important social issues. From your own personal experiences of retirement to the moral implications of the Qatar World Cup or the unfair treatment of female professional footballers. On and off the pitch, you are known for being level-headed and composed. Many might be surprised to hear that in a recent interview in Prague, you talked about empathy in coaching, the team building relationships and working on their principles. So, is this a fair reflection of you, and how much empathy did you have when tackling in defensive midfield?
Yeah, I was maybe known for being quite aggressive on the pitch, to be honest. I feel it's important to be competitive, and that actually got the best but also the worst out of me on the pitch. I got booked too many times. I think I was sent off a couple of times as well. Yeah. But it was always a big part of me. I've always heard it from my partner. I've heard it from many of my friends as well, that I turn into a different animal on the pitch when I play. I think off it, I'm quite calm and reflective, but on it, I definitely have that, competitive nature in me come out in full force. So not much of empathy when I play.
not much empathy on it. But there's a big difference across the white line, right? Like I think now that you're in a coaching role, how do you see the, like, let's say the interpersonal side of building a team and having guys like switch on before they go out to play?
Yeah, I do feel like when you're training, when you're having your team meetings, when you're in the gym, when you play, you gotta tune in. You gotta tune in. That's a big one for me. I have a really low tolerance when it comes to like complacency and poor attitude. So being like switched on, being the best version of yourself when it comes to training, that is for me the foundation of everything. If you don't do that, if you don't give your best, then I can't help you.
Do you think that like low tolerance of complacency is something that probably picked you out as being a potential captain?
Possibly. I think work ethic was a big one for me when I was young. I think that was something that my dad especially instilled in me. He was quite no nonsense parent in many aspects especially when it came to sports. And I think that is still a big part of me today. Also when I work with my players. So being empathetic is important. At the same time, just giving your best in your daily life. That is. I think that's crucial.
Yeah, sounds good.
Can we dive in a little bit deeper? When you say being empathetic, and earlier you said you must tune in, be present, what are some practical tips that you can give to someone who is in such a very demanding environment to still have empathy?
I think it starts, especially now this summer I came into a new environment. It was a Sparta Prague, first team. A lot of pressures, a lot of expectations. And dealing with those are not easy. And I feel like I've been in that place myself, where you feel like the world is on your shoulders. You're, struggling to keep up with the demands, no matter what they are. But just being like really understanding to the players' needs and where they come from, and trying to get a grip of where their motivations lie, and not being too judgmental, just being there, listening, being open-minded, because not everyone is going to see the world through your lens. So I think that's a big one for me. I think too many old players, they come into their coaching role and they see everything through their own experiences, and I think that's a big mistake that many people do.
I would know quite a lot of managers. If I think about particularly competitive parts of, obviously not sports, but in more of a business setting, we have things like sales, right? You have relatively competitive environments where managers quite often struggle to modulate the aggression. So they've got targets, they want to hit their targets, they think they know the job. Each one of their team members does their job slightly differently than how they do it. And quite often they can get overly motivated and overly focused on the goal and the targets, kind of pushing their team a little bit too much. I guess you have similar, like in a coaching role or even in a captain's role, I guess you'd have similar kind of like experiences where you want others to step up and you have to somehow work out how to do that properly. Yeah,
and when you were speaking, I was thinking about how it is being in a team where you are competing for a place in the starting lineup, but you only have 11 starters. You have 15, 20 who are not starting during the weekend. And that is for a footballer, that is the main part of your job, playing those games. Yeah. But it just doesn't work like that. You need to, because that leads to frustrations. It can easily lead to negativity. It can easily lead to you not dealing with those emotions in a healthy way. So trying to, and this is really difficult. And I was frustrated by myself when I was young and I didn't play, but just somehow trying to make players understand that that no matter what happens, just coming in every day, having that long-term view of your own development, just trying to improve, getting better. That is just for me, that kind of consistency in your behavior. That's a big one when it comes to young players, because they want to play. They want to play, and they think in their own mind that they are better than the guy who is playing that moment. So just trying to navigate those feelings and emotions, I think that's really important, and it's not easy. For some players it takes years. Some players, they never learn. But being a good teammate, even though you don't play, I think that's really important as well.
Being a good teammate is, there's quite many articles going on at the minute about how many workplaces are becoming toxic. And actually the thing that you're talking about is you said there that the young players think that they're better than their team members who are getting on the pitch. There's definitely equivalence to that, like across the corporate world, right? Where you've got lots of people who feel like they should be earning more, or they should have better roles in the project, or better roles in the team, or more recognition for the things that they do. And I don't think I've ever seen any manager or leader take someone to the side and go, look, I need you to be like this kind of team player. Like, I know how you feel. I know, you're disappointed or frustrated, but I need you to put the team before your individual aspirations or something like that. Yeah, it's really rare.
Because those individual aspirations, it's still what gets you to the top. So you need to have, I think we all have a bit of ego in ourselves, to some extent. But it's just about, how you tone it down. When you need to, because that kind of selfishness can also be a good thing, especially on the pitch. Competing, trying to be the best. But in a team environment, and this is when I was younger, I was really selfish. Until I was 24, 25, and actually found out what life is about. That was a big one, but it's just, I still remember my own performance being almost more important than the team's performance. And I could come in even if we won a game and I played poorly, I could still be disappointed. I was not I didn't feel I was a good teammate back then, but thankfully it did change, and I could see the bigger picture of being a part of a team.
Can we ask what shifted?
I think those experiences I had early on. I moved abroad when I was 16, so away from my comfortable setting in Oravais, away from my parents, away from my friends, and then just going from England to Sweden to the Netherlands to Germany, and then it definitely, those experiences helped. I think just growing up as a person, I was in that football bubble when I was younger, thinking that everything revolves around me and my football. The kind of selfish thinking. So thankfully I got away from that, and then started getting different interests in my life. Just everything around education, languages, history, and football was still the main thing in my life, but I created a bit of balance in my daily life that I felt was really, really, really healthy for me as a person.
Was it like a kind of a correction? Like, did you miss some of that stuff having moved so early for football? Do you feel like it was maybe like just kind of catching up the bit that you'd skipped? Yeah,
I still miss it today, man. I think that you're not gonna get everything in life. You need to choose a way, but I still miss being in school. When I was 16, I wanted to get away from school. I wanted to focus only on football. But when you get older, you see that there were some things that I would have liked to experience. So going to school, going to university, learning something completely different than football. Even today, because now again I'm immersed football day in, day out, no free days, no time to do anything else than taking care of the family and football. So I do miss that. I don't regret anything that I've done, but I definitely miss it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have 2 kids, so
I only have one. And I'm busy.
But I tell them like every day, like slow down. Like it's not, you're only going to be this one time, and then after it's gone, that's it. Yeah. So just take your time, because kids, I mean, they always want to you always want to go further and faster, as quick as you can. So crazy. So I wouldn't like to use the word philosophy, because that's puts a bit too much pressure. But through your career, you've taken in various leadership roles. You've worked under captains, you've worked under coaches, you've worked under different managers that have all had a different approach or way of kind of trying to get the best out of others. What do you feel are like the most important facets or the most important parts of leadership?
I think I do have a couple of big ones that I feel is important. I think inclusive leadership is maybe the first one. Not thinking that you know everything.
Yeah.
Being humble. Working together with people. Being open-minded. Being curious. I think that's where it starts for me. And the other one would be high standards. Again, I get really fed up with, people, organizations just doing things the way they've always done.
Yeah.
That's just, and I think that comes from especially my time in Denmark and FC Midtjylland, because that was an environment that was always striving to do things differently, to do things better. So high standards in everything. Is it training? Is it meetings? Is it organization? Is it just that daily rhythm? Just trying to find those small little details that we can do better.
Yeah.
And I think those 2 are the main parts.
Midtjylland's it's a really interesting case, right? So for those that aren't familiar with football or the sport, this was about 2014, 15, is it about that kind of time?
Yeah. Midtjylland
started on a big course of introducing analytics and data into all of their training and operations. And for a football club, football had talked, and this is football, not American football, soccer. Soccer. There'd been quite a lot of talk about things like economics and using player data and a bunch of other data sets to try and improve performance. But there was a pretty big resistance in most leagues, because most coaching and management approaches were relatively traditional, right? So they were former players, former coaches that didn't really trust new data or new insights. They just wanted to go for it. But Midtjylland saw massive success when they started to introduce these techniques. What was it like being in that kind of environment, right? So you must have been very different from the other clubs you'd played for.
Yeah, and I think that every time you try to change something, it does create some friction, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
But I think as a club, Midtjylland was in a good place to be open to that kind of thing. It was a young club, so when you're young, there's not too many rigid structures that holds you back from thinking differently. So they were in a good place, some good people there, and when you have your leaders taking that kind of approach, like the people at the highest of the hierarchy who just embodies that kind of thinking of, hey, let's be open to this, let's because football is a lot about feelings, sport is a lot about feelings. You take decisions based on feelings, and that's still today it should be like that. When you're on the pitch, you should be emotionally engaged. I think you need to find some balance, especially when you're recruiting players. You need to have some data points that defends your decision. Otherwise, you're making some mistakes that might cost you a lot of money, might cost you titles, might cost you winning games. But Midtjylland was an inspiration for me personally. Just the way they balance life. When we're on the pitch, we work hard, but after that, it's very hygge. People socializing, people want you to have a good time. A little bit more, more extrovert than Finns maybe.
Yeah.
You know, they're somewhere between the South Europeans and the Nordic people.
Oh yeah, the Italians of the Nordics. Isn't that what they call? I think that's what they call the Danes.
Okay.
I think that's what they call them.
That could be a good assessment. But yeah, I was there for 6 years, and I would never be anywhere for 6 years if I didn't, you know, feel good. So it was definitely a place that really shaped me as a human being, but also as a football man.
It's funny you mentioned like football or sports as a feelings based endeavor. I'd never really thought about it like that before. Like it's something, I guess, when you reading the ball, moving it forwards, interacting with your teammates. A lot of that is about like your sensory perception and your reaction. It's not necessarily about anything cognitive, but when you have a field that's sort of built on your emotions, it's really easy to get stuck in a bias, right? You buy players or you play a certain way that you think is definitely going to work, but you really rarely check back. Like, does this work? Like I think it should work, or like I think it does work. Yeah. So was the data? How often did you use the data, and like what were the kind of settings? Was it? Did people get offended, upset? You know, like I mean, but it's a different way of doing things. So
it was, and I got. We worked a little bit with data when I was in Germany before moving to Denmark, but I was still, you know, for me, it wasn't a big part of my daily life. It was more when it came to recruitment and studying the game that maybe the coaches and the directors and the sporting directors that they were looking into it. But I heard when I moved to FC Midtjylland, I heard that I was bought partly because of data and statistics, and that was new for me, you know, hearing that.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit curious, and this was also in my face of me being a little bit more open-minded than I was before. So I took it all in, and I could see that this is revolutionizing football in a way that had revolutionized, I don't know, baseball, you know, decades before and stuff. Yeah. Football is just usually not the first mover when it comes to these kind of things. It's like you say, very traditional, very conservative, very defensive when it comes to new things.
Yeah.
In particular. So yeah, it will create friction when you try to do something new in football. Some environments, some places are more open than others.
Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, if it reinforces, I think what Midtjylland found a way to do was, like you said, focus on the hygge, like on the good team building side, and then try to introduce sort of facts, for want of a better word. Like, this is working, let's put it here on the pitch so we can actually make it work, and then off the pitch let's decompress and like.
And then you just need to get the right people in.
Yeah.
Because no matter your vision, you know, people will be against it. So you give people a chance to maybe adapt, to change. But if they're not willing to change and they don't believe in what you believe in, then you need to get them out.
Yeah. Yeah. You've your career kind of spanned multiple different countries, right? So you've spent a lot of time in Denmark, but obviously you played and now coached in Czech, Finland, Germany, Holland, the UK. Is football and the way that it approaches things like leadership, is it like a kind of all the same culture, or are there big variations like country to country, culture to culture?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's big variations. I think I did get a cultural shock when I went to Greece from Midtjylland. It was also a move that I wanted for myself, because I felt after 6 years in Denmark, I had seen a really professional organization. Now I think I was 33, 34 back then. I knew that I was coming to the end of my career. I wanted to maybe shock my system a little bit and see something different.
Do something new, yeah.
And I had that maybe, you know, feeling about Greece and Greek football, that it was different towards how we do things in the Nordic countries.
Yeah.
So that was definitely, I had in 10 months I had 4 different head coaches. So that's very, there's a lack of consistency there, at least.
In football and in business. If you have 4 managers in that short space of time, it's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign, and it's not. And then it's not the head coaches or the manager's fault. It's higher up in the hierarchy, and felt there was a lack of, healthy leadership when it comes to Greek football. I'm not saying it's everywhere, but I think there's too many people who are, too feelings based. They don't really have a structural plan how to develop a club. They have a lot of money and they end up buying a football club, and then they think they know how to run a football club.
Yeah.
So that is also unfortunately a part of football in many countries.
So you wanted to stretch yourself, go outside of your comfort zone, and found yourself very far outside.
Very far, and in retrospect, it was maybe a little bit too far. It was also, our daughter was born during that time. I also had a big knee injury. The Euros were coming up, so it was in a short space of time. It was too many life-changing things happening. So I was a little bit on my edge.
Yeah, that Euros time was an interesting time. So as we mentioned in the introduction, under 21s, the Euro Championships, and then for Finland to go to its first major tournament. How was that as a captain? Like both qualifying through the campaign and then also getting to it was the Euros in many different locations, St. Petersburg and Copenhagen. Yeah.
I think representing my country has always been a big part of my identity. Very, very proud. I was there from the age of 14, 15, playing in the younger categories up until the senior team, captaining, being there for almost 20 years. It was amazing, and I think the goal for everyone was getting the senior men's team into a major tournament. That was always the holy grail for Finnish football fans alike. And it looked impossible because we were close many times. Almost got there, and then we had the golden generation with Litmanen, Hypia, Jääskeläinen, and all these icons of Finnish football, and they were close but didn't really get there in the end. So for us to do it, for me personally to be a part of making history in Finnish football, that was the icing on the cake, 100%. That's something that I will tell my grandkids when I'm 80 years old.
But also the journey is quite fascinating, right? So again, with a bit of context for listeners who may not be familiar with the sport, Finland qualified for the 2020 tournament, which was played in 2021 because of COVID. They qualified in 2019. If you go back to 2016, Finland national team went through like a phase of like no wins in 12.
Let's not go back there.
Well, I don't necessarily want to talk about like that particular time, but basically the same group of players, by and large, under a different manager, went from the worst run in like Finland's national team history to qualifying for its first major tournament in 2 years. How did that happen?
I wish I could tell you.
Okay.
It is difficult because, and I tell the younger generation who came in after that difficult period, they came in when we were going up. Yeah. And they thought that this is normal. And us from the older generation was trying to, explain to them, this is not normal what we're doing. We've been down, at the bottom, getting, criticized for years, getting laughed at. So you need to savor this because this is not normal for Finnish football. But it was, it was. I just feel like in general that when you go through tough times, that is usually when it shows what kind of person you're made of. Because it is easy to go through life when things are going well. In football it would be winning games, winning trophies. Then it's easy to be successful. But when shit happens, which it does for all of us, that is in a moment that you need to stand up and take some responsibility. So I think we were all really fed up with how things were going. We still had that big heart for being a part of this, being a part of the Finnish national team. No matter how poorly it went, but we still wanted to be there. We still wanted to get us out of that hole. And just bit by bit, game by game, we just we created some momentum, and then it was just incredible.
A few episodes ago, we had Mervi Airaksinen, who's the managing director of Microsoft in Finland, and she was talking about a time she had in one of her previous companies where they were going through a massive reorganization, and they were basically like going out. They were going bankrupt. And she said something like it was a difficult time for her and her leadership team, but it was like you basically had to do just one problem at a time, like just focus, like this is the next thing that we have to do. We have to cut it up. And there's lots more problems waiting for us after this one. But today, this is where we are. And this is what we have to fix. When the leadership changed, or when the manager changed in Finland, was there a similar approach? Did you have was there a big moment when you cleared the air and talked about what's going forward, or was it just okay? Let's go back to let's just get back on the training pitch and go back to basics. Was there a moment, or was it?
No, I don't think there's a moment where everything suddenly becomes clear. I think it was those small moments in everyday life. Yeah. I think Markku Kanerva, who was the coach back then as well, I think as a leader, he feels strongly about building a very safe space for everyone to be able to be themselves. He's not the loudest voice in the room, or he's not the one, barking or, having big motivational speeches, but he creates a very, family atmosphere. Everybody that comes to the national team feels good about coming here, because it's maybe not as strict as it is in their club teams, which in this context might be a good thing. So I think it was just step by step, some new players coming in. I think everybody just being really fed up with how things were going and eager to start something new.
Okay, just one game at a time.
I think so, because I think maybe in life in general that we just too many times we're just looking, okay, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing next week? Who are we facing in months' time? Yeah. Instead of just focusing on being present and seeing the small stuff that you need to do right now.
The FLT has started working in partnership with Populum. Populum is an AI-fueled employee engagement platform that can answer a whole bunch of needs that you've got between you and your employees. To understand how they can help you in your business, reach out to the FLT at contact@the-flt.com, and we'll set you up with a special price and a demo.
So speaking about representing your country and trying to tie this into Finnish leadership, which is what we're talking about, you mentioned earlier that one of the aspects of leadership is being humble. So my question is, how are you so humble with all the success? How do you do it?
I'm humble, yes, I hope. But at the same time, I'm also pretty confident in my own skills and abilities. So you shouldn't be humble to an extent that you become passive and that you become smaller than what you are. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
But being humble, being open to different approaches, I think that just comes because I'm a curious person. But that Finnishness in me, and I think Finns in general have they find it difficult to receive compliments and positive feedback. We don't know how to go about it. We really don't. And it's okay, let's talk about something else.
Exactly.
So I hope. But again, it's that mix of, hey, I know I'm good at something. I know I have some skills as a player, but also as a coach, as a leader. But at the same time, not thinking that you're too big for your own shoes, or having that too big of an ego, especially not in a group group setting.
We've seen that a lot with our Finnish leaders that come on the show. There's a bit of a quiet confidence about them. You know, they're humble. They know that they're good at what they do, but they don't brag. Yeah.
And I don't think we get too like. I was big on that one. When you win, don't get too high, and when you lose, don't get too low. I think when it comes to behavior, I'm very consistent. My partner would call me boring because she's up and down, and I'm very consistent no matter what happens. So I think also in a football setting, having that consistency when you come into training, so that the players they know what to expect. You know?
That's what I was going to say. Boring is a pretty good way for teams to win. I think maybe if you've got your up and down and you're going on like an individual journey, it can help sort of boost you up when you need it. But if you need to win like over a series of time with a group of people together, then being boring and predictable and reliable and clear about standards is a really good way to help people come together towards performing better. Yeah. The comment you made about not being smaller than yourself, I really like. I haven't heard it put that way before, but sometimes I do get the feeling, like a lot of the Finnish leaders we talk to, they don't like being called a leader. They don't like, they're uncomfortable when they get called as a leader, and they're uncomfortable when you talk about the success or the career they've had. But you've taken quite many, I would say, stances out in an outspoken way on multiple topics. So you wrote a pretty in-depth article ahead of the Qatar World Cup. You've also been out vocally supporting female footballers and their pay packages. You talked a little bit also about the effects of retirement. Does it come naturally to you to start to comment or to stand up for causes that maybe you're not even directly affected by?
Yeah, I think, again, when I was younger, I didn't feel strongly about like social issues in general. I was just too caught up with improving as a footballer. But eventually, you know, with age comes wisdom, hopefully, and a curiosity about the world. So, and also having that platform that I have as a footballer, I felt there was a good opportunity to speak about more important issues. And also being the captain of the national team, I felt it was a sense of duty as well. So yeah, I think it's important, and I don't know where I get it from. I think it is from my mom, because she's like the kindest person I know. She's so empathetic, and she should take care of herself more than she does, but she just always have other people in mind. So she always had a big heart for refugees, immigrants coming to Finland, trying to help them, support them, any way she could. So I'd always felt like strongly when there was some like unfairness in the world, and I remember I was with my partner watching a movie at the cinema. It's very rare that we go together and do something, but we went to a movie at the cinema and we watched a film from the World War II, and it was about refugees and how and all the crazy things that were happening, and I couldn't stop crying.
Okay.
And I never cry.
Yeah.
I never cry. But there's something now also when I scroll through Twitter and seeing the stuff happening in Gaza. I mean, it really kills me. It really kills me. And just seeing the like Western societies, like democracies and big organizations unable to act to get it to stop. That really, I don't know. I think it's not just me, but everyone, following that. I think I get so angry.
I mean, I don't want to kind of speak out of turn, but I guess it's a combination, right, of the empathy that you have on one side from like your mom's side, talking about making sure that the right thing is done, and then the other side of standards, like letting standards slip, because it's quite frustrating to watch all the bad stuff is difficult to watch. But if you watch it because you know somebody's not doing their job or not maintaining the standards that we feel like we have, then I think it hurts maybe a bit more. Okay. Sorry. I caught myself.
Little heavy there.
I think I went too deep on that.
Is that a tear, Mark?
It's British. It's okay. We're all cried out. Go.
What is your advice to other celebrities, other football stars, successful people in the spotlight to use their platform for good?
Yeah, I think that there's been a change. I think there are more athletes taking a stance that there were before, or that's at least the image that I have, and that's nice to see. I think it's more common in America than in Europe. I think there's too many who shies away from that opportunity, just deciding to focus solely on their sporting career. But I do feel it comes with your job as well, especially if you're in a leadership position. I think it's just part of your role. I don't think you can get away with just, hey, I'm just here to answer, game-related questions. No, for me, it doesn't work like that anymore. Sports is still part of society. We're not just some island somewhere where we don't get influenced by what things are going on. So anyone who's courageous and brave enough to speak about social issues, I'm a big fan. I also know why some don't. There is some expectations, I think, from higher in the hierarchy to not deviate too much away from sporting questions, because it might, create some negative light on them. They might face difficult questions from sponsors who don't share the same opinions, share the same values. So I definitely know that there is. It's not easy for footballers or athletes to speak about that. In some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases they feel like they need to be careful. And that's a shame.
I think it goes back to what you said earlier. Find your people, find your tribe that share the same values.
Yeah.
And with privilege comes responsibility.
Well, and with high performance also, and leadership and the rest of it. But it's true. There's quite a lot of, even in the corporate setting, there's a lot of leaders who shy away from taking opinions. And there's an interesting question about how does that really affect not just the team that you work with, but the people you work kind of for and in your ecosystem. Because if you don't have a particular stance, it's difficult to call yourself a leader, right? It's difficult to be seen as a leader if you don't have the bravery or the courage to just be honest about how you feel.
Yeah. Agree.
What's the hardest challenges you found from transitioning from player to coach or manager?
Well, that transition is really complicated for a lot of former athletes, because you go from being in the spotlight to not being in the spotlight. And also maybe with the financial side, you go from earning a lot of money to earning a lot less. And it is, if you don't have a plan, if your identity is really, really tied up to you as an athlete, then it can be a big black hole that you just fall into. So I'm happy, especially with the new generation, that they are trying to study on the side. They are trying to do something. They have other hobbies. They are planning for the future, because this is still a very short span of our life, these 10, 15 years that we have. So being aware of those pitfalls, I think that's a big one. But for me personally, I felt a big relief getting away from a job that has such a focus on your physical nature. So every morning you wake up and you think, oh, how are your knees today? How's your back? And can you train today? And those last couple of years when my body was telling me to quit, that was hard because I couldn't be the person, the leader, the player that I wanted to be. And that was the tough time. That was a tough time because I couldn't train the way I wanted to.
Yeah,
I couldn't be on the grass pushing everyone because I had pain everywhere. I couldn't perform to the level that I expected of myself. So that kind of transition, going from an important player on the pitch to not so important, that was a difficult one. That was difficult to deal with. But then when I actually decided, okay, enough is enough, that was a big relief. And just going into coaching, where it was more about maybe what's in your heart and what's in your mind instead of your physical capabilities.
Yeah.
So that was a big relief.
Was it a big? I mean, skill-wise, was it a big transition? So I think you're leading on the pitch and you're playing and you have your standards, and then you come off the pitch and you have to try to get your message across or your thoughts across, like without. Well, I suppose you still have the ball, but at least without kind of leading by example. Yeah. So was that a big?
Well, because I had a pretty good journey to where I am right now, and I think it's maybe in some people's eyes it's gone fast, but for me it's been a good process because I was 6 months in the academy working with young players. Then I was a year and a half in the club's second team, which is mostly players from 18 to 22. So again, a young group, but at a higher level, playing in the second highest league in Czech Republic. And then now from the summer in the senior environment. So it just gave me time to hone my craft. And I felt at the start, when you start out the first few weeks when I was in the academy, I was like, how should I be? What is my coaching style? What is my leadership style? But pretty soon I found out that just be myself, be authentic, be vocal, be there. So now feel very comfortable, doing this. But it's been nice, being different environment, academy, senior level. You get that kind of different perspective on things. So
you'll be on the touchline in the Champions League this season.
Yeah. Big deal. Shaking hands with Pep Guardiola. Not everyone gets to do that.
CV maybe in this.
I'm a United fan, so I'm not going to.
That's true. You can't go to City. Yeah.
That actually came to my next question. Sorry. Do you have a manager you idolise that you look up to that is a big influence on you?
I can't say that I have. Some managers that I've worked with, they've definitely shaped me. Especially in Denmark, some of these managers, they're now in big teams in Bundesliga in Germany, German national team, Danish national team. So they've definitely influenced my thinking. And again, it's Danes, Denmark, for some reason. But I was it was a high level team, good people around me. So they definitely made me a better coach.
And there's many famous ex-players that are now coaching. For example, Xabi Alonso, and how he had a great season last year. Is that sort of inspiration for you too?
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see the journey that these ex-players go on, because some of them, they jump into really big positions too early, and I think that is a risk. And again, I think being humble, not thinking you know everything just because you've played the game, that's important. At the same time, don't make yourself look too small. Being 15, 20 years in this game, it gives you some perspective, it gives you some experiences. You know what to expect. But yeah, for me, it's been a good process so far. And of course, what Alonso and these other former players do is, I think it's an inspiration for everyone.
Yeah, and you have to have a Finnish goalkeeper in your squad if you're going to win something. Like that's
the more Finns, the more you win.
Exactly.
There you go.
That's good. Awesome. Oh, maybe one thing: Greece and England coming up, right, for the national team in the next one.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? What are you expecting from the games? Are they going to be tough?
For sure. I think now it's the first time I'm in the national team. We're going to work with a new group of staff. Excited to be here. I've only been away for a few years, so it felt like coming home when I landed yesterday. And I felt very nostalgic being back in this hotel because I've spent so much time here. But yeah, going back to Greece, it has a place in my heart, of course. And then meeting Wembley at Wembley, I think that's meeting England at Wembley. That's huge.
Huge game. Any tactical surprises coming up? More aggression in the middle of the pitch?
We'll see. There's some new tactical influences, hopefully, that everyone can see.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Tim. Thank you very much. You've been incredibly generous with your time. There was really a lot for us to think about and mull over. So it's been. I probably talked a bit too much about football.
Sorry for that. But you never had a guest from the sporting industry, right?
Exactly.
So it's fair enough that we do one episode on sports.
Exactly, and I think there was a lot of insights that carry over to many. But thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. You're quite an inspiration.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing good work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.